Okay, so we're going to continue where we left off from. That is Halacha Taaruvot, Siman Tzadik Chet, Seif Daled. We left off with the halacha of a suffix. What is a suffix? When is something considered a doubt that we can rely on the halacha, the suffix lekula, suffix d'Rabbanan lekula. And we mentioned that the suffix in Seif Gimel, where something was spilled, and therefore we're not sure exactly the amount that was there before versus how much is now, is a good example of a suffix. And therefore, in certain situations, it could be helpful if we know that there was at least a rov, depending on whether it's min b'mino, min b'she'eno mino. And sometimes that kind of a situation can help us. And in these areas of Halacha Taaruvot and Basar v'chalav, you occasionally do have to deal with the suffix. In other words, what do? We're in doubt, we're not sure. And we went through the few differences of what does it mean you're not sure. Is it you're not sure because you're not knowledgeable, you don't know how to figure it out? Or is it perhaps something that no one knows, no one is certain about? Is it a suffix to you, or is it a suffix to the entire world? And there are various shitas, various opinions on if they are what is considered a suffix, and if that is considered a suffix, if no one knows. And the Rashba, has his opinion in some areas where he is stricter in the sense that even if something is not known by many people, it's still not a suffix. Just because people are not knowledgeable does not render that to be a real suffix. And what's interesting is that you see somehow a connection between where we left off and the following seif, because in the next seif, Seif Daled, we are dealing with various unknowns. In other words, we're going to determine the halacha, of course, in various situations where there's different kinds of sfekot. And one of them is a suffix which is very difficult to figure out. And that is how much is being emitted, how much flavor is being emitted by an isser. We know that we have something that is forbidden being cooked, that is mixed, and as a result of the heat, because it's being cooked, there's flavor. So we have to deal with the flavor. We want to either cancel out the flavor if we have enough of a shear to cancel out the flavor, to neutralize it, or we're going to render this mixture usr. So we need to know how to figure this out, how to calculate how much flavor there is. By now we know that the flavor poses a problem. We have a piece of isur, in this case, as the Mechaber writes, isur shenid bashel in heter, they're cooked together. And this is a very important, every word here makes a difference. It says, Isur shenid bashel im heter. It was cooked, as opposed to what? Obviously it was cooked. No, not necessarily. Because when you learn Melicha, you learn Basar b'chalav, you learn Taaruvot, mixtures can come about in different ways. They can come about just by sitting together on top of each other. One is hot, one is cold, both are hot, both are cold. Being salted together. Being in a liquid form, in other words, being immersed, being in a bottle, in a can, together with some liquid, which is called in Hebrew kovush, or in English is it pickled? Yeah, thank you. What's that? So we have various forms of not only combinations, but how the two things are intermingling, interacting. And later on in Siman Kuf Hey, in Halacha Taaruvot, we will talk about various degrees of heat. If you learn Hilchos Shabbos, then you may know of them already. There's something called Yat Soleded, there's something called Kli Sheni, Kli Rishon. Various degrees of heat, and it makes a difference. This could make a difference in the kitchen too. This happens. It has happened to me, I'm sure this happened to you. Your wife says to you, I just mixed what I was cooking, preparing to cook. It was meat, and I used a dairy spoon, but it wasn't hot yet. It was in a flame, but it wasn't hot. The food wasn't hot. The pan was hot. It takes a while till the food heats up. See, if it's already boiling hot and then she mixes it, the question is a little bit different. But what if it's in the very beginning, the early stages? It's not so hot. Does it make a difference? Yes, maybe. It maybe does. If she's certain that it wasn't hot. So that is why the Mechaber says we're talking about an isur shenid bashel im heter. The two were cooked together. Something which is forbidden with something which is permissible. Now, what's this isur? Is this isur something that is really usur by itself, a piece of non-kosher meat, Or is it a piece of kosher meat that had a bli'ah, that became usher from before, and it absorbed something that was not kosher, non-kosher flavor? We don't know for sure. From reading this, it appears that the Mechaber is talking in simple terms, an isur shenitbash im heter, something which is forbidden with something which is permissible. But it can make a difference. It can make a difference if something has a bli'ah or not. Let's see what the Mechaber says with the assumption that it's completely usur. It's a piece of isur that is all usur. In other words, it doesn't just have a portion of it that is usur, all of it is usur. Afilu makiro v'hu sholem, even though you can recognize it, and it's all intact, there's no pieces left inside, vezorkoi, and you of course removed it, because if you recognize it, you have to remove it. So the Mechaber is reminding us something that we should know by now, that there's no bitul on an isur which is be'ein, the isur that is there. Otherwise you would say, well, it's mixed, I can eat it. No. You see it, you recognize it, so you've removed it. Now we have another issue. So we no longer have an issue with the isur itself, because we've removed it. But so what? The Mechaber says, you still have to deal with the flavor, that it was emitted. You need 60 times the amount of heter. 60 times in the heter, to dilute, to cancel out the isur, for me to be able to eat the cholent, for me to be able to eat this, whatever it is. An isur came in, an isur fell in, and I took it out, I removed it. Now, when did I remove it? Right away? Would it make a difference? It was right away. Yes, we said before, it does. I think we've mentioned that if it did not really have a chance to cook, to heat up, then it may not be a big deal. In order for flavor to come out, to be extracted from the isur, from the hot dog, or whatever it is that is treif, it has to have, the physics has to be there, right? In order to draw the flavor into this dish. So we've had enough time, enough heat to get the flavor in. We've removed the isur. Now I need 60 times volume of heter food to cancel out any flavor. 60 times against what? 60 times against the entire isur. It's a small piece, 60 times against it. Right?
Does it make an issue once?
Right now, we don't know that. Right now, we're talking about in general terms that most isurim are pretty much the same. We have a problem with the flavor. We want to get rid of the flavor. We need 60 times against the entire isur. Wait a minute, the entire isur. Why the entire isur? Is there that much flavor over 5-10 minutes of cooking as the volume, the mass of it's really the volume of the isur? Maybe there's just a little bit of flavor. How come I need 60 times? It's a lot. This big piece. Who says there's that much flavor? 60 times the substance.
Or the weight.
The volume. Yeah, the volume. The size, right? 60 times. Why? Why do I need? So the Mechaber tells us, here he actually tells us, he gives us an explanation. You don't always have that privilege. You have to go through the Beis Yosef, you have to go through the... Here he tells us, because we don't know. What does this resemble to? And where is this halacha taken from? From Kachal. In the Gemara, Maseches Chulin Tzadik Zayin, Amud Beis. There the Gemara speaks about Kachal, the situation of Kachal, the udder of the animal, which has to be prepared in a certain way because it has milk. If you want to have it for dinner, they say it's tasty. And if you ever want to have basar v'chalav that is mutter, this is an example of it, but you still have to prepare it right. But you didn't. It wasn't done. So it would...
By the way, the chalav shkuta, Rabbana.
Right. It's a Rabbana. Right. We mentioned that. So therefore, here you did not prepare the kachal properly. It's mixed, cooked with other things. You have a problem. So the Gemara says, how are you going to figure out? You're going to figure out by how much milk came out, or by figuring the size, the volume of the kachal itself. The conclusion is, of course, the whole kachal, because we do not know how much milk came out. But the problem is, the Gemara says, but wait a minute, what if this kachal, once it renders this pot usher, right? Or even if there's enough against it, what if this kachal went and it was used in another pot? Would it still be usher?
A second time over.
A second time over? And the answer is yes. And there's two explanations given for it. The basic explanation is because once the kachal was made usher by the chachamim, it remains usher, like a chanan by itself, regardless of if all the milk is gone. That's an exception. Or the simple explanation, which I think the Taz explains, that really applies to all isurim, not just in kachal. That since we do not know how much milk came out, perhaps there's still a little bit left. So even a second and a third time, you're going to have the same exact problem. You're going to need the exact same amount.
60 against the whole other.
Exactly.
Each time over.
Again, and we need this halacha or this point because it's going to be we're going to learn about it soon.
And the problem is not the other, but the milk it contains.
The milk, as the Taz explains, which is the way the Rashba learns, that the main problem with this is lack of knowledge. We were talking about not knowing. This is a situation where we do not know. We cannot ascertain for sure how much milk came out. And therefore, there may be some left. This can pose a problem again. Otherwise, I would think, wait a minute. If I made this bottle once, then it's completely mutter now. No. There's maybe something left over there. I don't know how much came out, and we are machmir. It's a chumrah. We are strict, and we're strict the second and the third time, fourth and the fifth time. We don't know.
But the milk in
and we have to do it 60.
The milk in the udder, the Rabbana.
It's only the Rabbana.
The milk in the udder does not know while it's alive.
That's correct.
If it's already dead, and now it comes out, Chalach Shluta is the Rabbana.
It's only the
Rabbana.
Yeah, no, but here, as I said before, the Gemara explains, we were machmir with the kachal.
So we were machmir
with the kachal. Right, exactly.
Normally we might say that.
Yes, exactly. Here we do not say it. The chachamim were machmir with kachal, that it remains, once it was usher, it remains a piece of usher meat. However, based on the reasoning or some of the reasoning of what the problem is there, that some milk may still be there, the reasoning applies to other isurim. When it comes to other isurim, not kachal, we say that the reason why we continue to need 60 times is because maybe there's something left over. That's all. And that's why this is an example of not of kachal over here, but of other isurim that we will need 60 times. Why? Because we do not know how much came out.
The second cooking?
Let's say this piece of usher meat fell in, or by mistake was put in another pot. You need 60 times against it again.
Even though...
No, the bishul achar bishul doesn't really apply here. No, because the flavor came out, and we don't know if all the flavor came out. Maybe yes, maybe not. And there may be even less flavor by now. Once we need 60, by min b'shein nomino, we use the 60 across the board. We're machmir, as we've explained before, it's a chumrah, and it's just to be on the safe side. Because we know 60 is for sure good in most situations to cancel out any taste. Okay. So what's the chidush here? The chidush here is the halacha that we're learning here is that even if the isur has been removed, it's no longer there, we still have to deal with the tam. And how much do we need? We need 60 times against the original isur. Why? Because we do not know, even though you've removed it, we do not know how much it emitted during the time it was in the pot. We don't know. So we're strict. Lefichach, therefore, this halacha also applies in the following situation. Mevashel b'kderat isur, shehi bat yoma. If somebody cooks in a pot of isur, treif, the pot is treif. He's a caterer, he came to a hotel, and he forgot to kasher one of the pots. Started making the stew, the chicken, or whatever. Oh, this one we didn't kasher yet. So that's called the Gederas Isur. Okay? Shehi bat yoma, that day it was used by the goy. Now this is an important idea here. For those who have not learned Basar b'chalab yet, have not learned other halachas that are related, the Mechaber is introducing a new concept here. There's something called bat yoma. Bat yoma is an very important concept. Has this pot, spoon, fork, knife been used today? And in Basar b'chalav, actually, it makes a difference whether it was used for anything, even for water. Remember that one? If you cooked water, just water. You did not use it for milk. You did not use it for meat.
Why for the milk? Because the Rashba says...
No. Forget about how we pass him, but just the idea.
Okay, so there is a
Right,
possibility.
this idea of having cooked something in it. Because what's this idea of ben yoma? For those who are not familiar with it. Ben yoma means something that has been used recently within the past 24 hours. The flavor, according to the way we learn, is still fresh. Once 24 hours go by, that flavoring with treif is pogum. And we're going to be learning more about tam livgam. Tam livgam is a big help. Even though something is asr, when something is pogum, it's defective, it's not so much of an issue. Right.
It makes the food worse.
It can be an issue in Basar b'cholov, however. But ordinarily, it's a very helpful thing. It helps us a lot in Basar b'cholov and Taaruvot to be able to figure out if something can be eaten now or not. Okay? Let's say somebody cooked goulash meat in a treif keli. Can he eat that goulash meat?
Depends.
What's the halacha?
It's an eno ben yoma.
It's an eno ben yoma. The last time the guy used it was 6 months ago.
So any can eat?
It's a treif pot, a treif pan. He cooked pork, he made shrimp, and octopus. But he hasn't used it for a couple months. What would you say? Would you eat that food?
Whether I would eat it is the second question.
That's a second question.
Are you allowed to?
Are you allowed to? Yes, the answer is yes. Why it's pogum? No, lechatchila.
No. B'diavad means...
But b'diavad means that you should not cook in that pot. Of course not. Yeah. B'diavad, yeah. Obviously. Yes.
But if you did cook in it...
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so tam pogum. So here the Mechaber introduces, for those who did not learn Basar b'cholov yet, that it's an important idea. We're talking about B'kteres Isha Shehi Bat Yoma. Bat Yoma. All right. 24 hours. 24 hours.
But that's how you use that pot. How is you going to extract the air?
You can make hagala. If you want to be...
What is the form of putting water in it?
No, it makes no difference.
Boiling it.
No, you're boiling it, but you're extracting the isur from the pots.
But
You're pouring out the water.
If you
You're gonna pour out the
boil
water.
If you put water in it, you boil something in it, it's not that
Right.
you
That's why we don't do hagala on the same day. Right?
24 hours after...
Yeah,
saying you need
preferably.
Yeah.
You don't do hagala on that
That's what I'm
day.
saying.
And we have a klal that most kelim are not b'nei yoman.
Keli stam is...
Kelim stam is ena b'nei yoman. So it's a very helpful klal when you have a doubt about what you could eat something that was cooked in something that it should not have been cooked, either basar in chalav in basar, right, or in treif. So if you have this klal that tells you most kelim have not been used on that day, it's a very helpful klal.
Now, I know that by goyim, that you don't know for sure that it was used 24
Yeah.
hours, you can it wasn't.
Right.
How about by a Jew? Like the milchik pot, do you have also something? I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
With Zat Hashem, we're going to learn about it. Otherwise, we're going to get involved into too many details here. What's interesting, however, when dealing with kalim, which is a whole different area, kalim, that are also, what happens if you have a treif keli that got mixed with kosher kalim? Have you thought about that one? In other words, you not only have food that was mixed, that we know what the halacha is, you have bottle, you have rov, you have shish. What about kalim? You know that one of the dishes, you never got around to make hagala to it. Okay? You never got around time to do hagala or libun, whatever is required to make it kosher. You just sat there and now you don't remember which one it is. And it's mixed with all sorts of pots.
Open the knife, no?
Yeah, and the same thing. So,
that happens in hotels quite often.
yes, so eventually we will be learning the area of davar sheyesh lo matirim. Davar sheyesh lo matirim means like this. If something can be resolved in an easy way, it's called davar sheyesh lo matirim. In other words, by waiting, by doing something, then you just don't say it's bottle.
You can't. You're not allowed to say
Yeah, you can. You just can't. I mean, it's a davar sheyesh lo matirim. In other words, there is a way I can deal with it. Eventually we'll talk about it. With kalim that got mixed, there's an easy solution. Don't say bottle, berov. Why? It's a davar sheyesh lo matirim. How could I make it mutter? Make hagala to everything.
Yeah, it's physically possible.
And we're going to see how this fits into our Siman here too.
Now,
It's
is that-
physically possible.
I'm saying, if let's say under circumstances where it's not physically possible, Pesach.
Why? But why don't we always say by kalim? The halacha is, by the way, it's bottle.
It is.
It is bottle. Well, why? Just take off 5 or 10 pots, pans, or knives and do hagala. It's too much of a bother, too much of a tircha. There's expenses involved, possibly time, and because of that, there's a leniency on that. That's not called a davar sheyesh lo matin if it's so involved.
Uh-huh. So it's not.
So this will help us over here. We will understand.
You also follow on the fact that the role.
That's why, but we said it's not bottle if it's a davar sheyesh tiri.
Right.
We'll learn that eventually. Yeah. Okay, so here in this halacha, so far, what do we know? That a mevashel b'gderat isur shehi bat yoma, that was used during that day, otochev kaf shel isur beheter, or he takes a kaf, a spoon of isur, to mix something which is heter. Tzarich shishim keneged kol hagdera ukeneged kol ma shetachav me'akaf. You're going to need 60 against the entire pot or against the entire spoon. Why? She'enanu yodim kama balu. We do not know how much they've absorbed. In other words, here there's no umdana, there's no way of figuring out, as the Rashba explains. This is one of those situations, that's why it follows the previous. This is a kind of a suffix that we can never figure out. Okay? We can never figure out. And in some ways it's like kachal, that you have to use the maximum, because in kachal you have a way to deal with the problem. Nobody will ever be able to figure it out, and therefore what do we explain? But we have a way to solve it. What do? You use the maximum and you're on the safe side. So this is a situation where you just can't say, well, suffix, No, this is a suffix that you can't figure out, but you can get out of the problem. How do you do that? Use the maximum. The maximum is 60, just like by kachal. So whether it's a spoon, whether it's the pot that is usher, you're going to need 60 times against the pot, if that's the one that's usher, or 60 times against the kaf. Now, if we're dealing with a pot being usher, you're in trouble. You know why, Ivan? Why you're in trouble if you cooked something kosher in a pot that's usher, that is a ben yoma. Why are you in trouble?
Maybe that's what you mean.
That's right.
Rarely does a pot contain 60 times its own
Right.
volume.
Rarely can a pot contain within its walls 60 times, right, the volume of itself.
So you'll have to throw it out. Now the question is...
So it's treif,
Yeah.
usually.
And very seldom, it's really, really thin.
So,
and very
so
light.
before we go on,
But I have a question on that.
yeah,
Is that something that we learned from the times when the pots were made of clay, of cheres? Or is it something that also applies equally to pots today?
no, there's an opinion that holds that lechora, apparently, if the pot would be wide enough with thin walls, then it would be possible that you would contain the necessary volume.
And every haggadah used to post it as pot, I would put in a stone so it will
It
over.
will be bubble over, and it's only anyway. It's not barnat, and it's a heter, and it's before Pesach, right? How do you figure out, by the way, if you have 60 times? So there's an interesting Beis Yosef that tells you how to figure out the volume within the pot itself.
Of the thickness of the walls, actually, not how much it contains.
Take a big pot, fill it with water, and take the smaller pot and put it inside. The water that is displaced is what you need 60 times against. It's in the Beis Yosef.
Yeah.
I'm surprised nobody else mentioned it here.
This is so-called archaeology.
Huh? Yeah, of course.
He
Yeah.
stole it from you.
Yeah, well, possibly. Yeah. Yeah, it's displacement. That's how you are able to figure it out. Look at the last. I don't know if you have a Shulchan Aruch, but anyway, the last detail that the Mechaber mentions. Okay, we don't know, and you need therefore 60. He says, Ben shem shel cheres or etz or mateches. It makes no difference whether it's clay or wood or mateches, metal. Why does he have to tell us this for? Why would I think it makes a difference? There's a shita of the Ravad that nobody seems to go along with. Ravad must have been an expert in metallurgy or I don't know, and he determines, well, listen, with mateches and eitz, you can make hagala. Metal and eitz, hagala can be used. You cannot use hagala, which is hot boiling water, for cheres, porcelain, earthenware, right? So because hagala can be used, so some of the flavor could have come out during the cooking process. So therefore the Ravad says, we can figure it out. We can figure it out how much is left, how much was emitted, if we're dealing with those kinds of kalim. Not with cheres, because cheres it will absorb, but it won't let out, it won't release whatever it absorbed, at least not as much. But with mateches, with metal, and with eitz, he says, yes, it can happen. In heat, it's coming in, it's coming out. Just like it comes in, it comes out. Keboloi kach polto, as you learned before probably. So therefore, the Mechaber puts in this halacha that we don't distinguish. Just in case you have any ideas like the Rabbah, he says no, but we don't. That's the only reason, Lechora, why he mentioned that it does not make a difference what you're dealing with. We're going to apply the rule the same to all kinds of material, even though Lechora, with metal or wood, some of the flavor could have come out, right? From within the pot.
Or the previous time.
Yeah. So in other words, right, or the second time around, yeah, you won't have as much as the first time, because after all, you're cooking, and when you're cooking and it's boiling and it's metal, some of it comes out. Who says it always remains there? It does come out, by the way. It does, for sure, but we don't know how much, right? How little. So therefore, we're always machmir, and the Mechaber says that this therefore applies to all materials. All right. Then the Ramos says, as long as bilvad shebalu'o al yidei retichat esh. Remember we said it before. Isu shenisbashel im heter, nisbashel cooked. Well, obvious. Well, the Ramos says, well, make sure you remember that it's nisbashel, because if it was through Melicha, then it would be different. Let me just read it. Bilvad shebalu'o al yidei retichas esh. You need the boiling of fire. She'az habliya holeches bechol hakli. Then the bliya, that which has been absorbed, when you're cooking something, and the pot is half full of water, half full of whatever it is that you're cooking, because you're cooking it, the bliya in that pot travels all over the pot, even to the portion above the level of the water. Because let's say you've always used this pot, you cook 50%, halfway. Why should I need the whole thing? Yeah.
When you pour it out,
right.
It's still left.
Yeah. What about cham miktzos cham kuloi?
If it's not here.
Yeah, if it's a metal pot. Yeah. Even though that's a different idea, used elsewhere for different things, but it could be used, as we will soon see, for that too. So therefore you see that there are other forms of combination, and if it's not cooking, the halacha will be different. But if it's cooking, I just added this little detail that the water, even though you cooked it halfway, will tend to, the flavor in the water, the iser, will tend to spread all over the keli. But if it's with retichas melicha, avalidei retichas melicha, eino nivla bekli, rak kedei klipa. Now we're introduced to another concept in Yore Deah, something called klipa. What's a klipa? A shell, a peel, a thin layer. A thin layer, this is important to know what is a klipa. In Yore Deah, if I can recall the various differences, you will come across various kinds of situations. The biggest problem is when you need shishim. Of course, there are situations where you need more than shishim. Well, that's the exception. There are situations where it's not even bottle. Okay? But basically in shi'urim, shishim is the big one. What's the next one after shishim? No, rov.
No,
Rov. Majority, it's not 60. The next one, kedei netila. It means removing off a piece. You have a klipa, which is even thinner than a kedei netila. What's beneath klipa?
scrape.
Huh? Hadocha.
Scraping between.
Yeah, scraping, hadocha, it's pretty much the same. You barely have it. The scraping is not so much of a... Give you an example of when you would use a little bit of scraping or a little bit of washing. Well, there's various examples. Let's say you buy fish, kosher fish. You go to the fish market, and the guy uses knives that may have been used to cut crab, squid, right? Huh? Yeah, all the things that are tarif. He's using the same knife. You know for sure he is. You have no doubt that he is. He washed his knife, of course. He's very clean. Can you buy that fish from him? He cut it with a treif knife. Lechatchila. Yes. It's cold. There's no heat. But there's a pressure here. Yes, that's the problem, is there's a knife here. So what do? You just cut away the edges. Lechatchila, you can do that. In Europe, in the olden days, people, when they used to go to the fish market, in their basket they used to put a kosher knife. Here, cut it for me with my knife.
Still,
Yeah? But you don't need to do it. You don't need to do it. Lechatchila, you can go ahead and buy it, you just cut away the edges. You wash away the edges, and that's fine. Cut away, if a knife was used, that's when you cut. That's the difference you were talking about. The Megarid, because a knife was used, you cut it away. You cut away the edges, and then you're okay. No problem whatsoever. There are other times where you rinse it, you wash it. It depends what exactly happened. But I just gave you a few examples of different kinds of scenarios where different methods are used to remove any vestige, any remnant of the Isser.
Is this of
No.
without double thing affecting the...
Yeah, double charif, we don't have the double charif here. That's another example of something else. Charif is something else. But here's the charifus, or the sharpness of the knife, versus what you may think of the onion. Yeah,
that's one.
yeah, a little bit different. Yeah, that could pose a problem too, if it was cooked. Yeah, yeah. But anyway, so what you
Are
have.
there other examples?
Oh yeah, there are all kinds of examples. You know, with similar situations in Hilchas Shchita. You know, there's various examples of when you would take the knife, for example, and stick it in the ground, in the earth, instead of making neitza, what's called neitza, a different form of kashering the knife. This is using. There's depending on what exactly happened, what's involved.
Is that correct?
For the most part, yeah, exactly.
How do we-
Hot, it's a problem. Sure, hot is a problem. Heat transfers everything, and in a big way. So therefore, we can't be lenient. But that's why here the Ramah emphasizes bilvad shebolu lidei retichas eish. What does he say then? Because as a blia holeches bechol hakli, then the blia goes in the entire pot, even though you were cooking only halfway up. Aval lidei retichas melicha, if it was salted, salt, especially the kitchen salt, not the table salt that's used to salt meat and chicken, the heavy duty salt,
Coarse.
very coarse, very strong. And look what it does to the roads when it snows. It kills the roads, you know. But anyway, it's very powerful. Salt is very powerful as a preservative, and also it can be destructive. And with blood, it removes the blood. It has this how would you call this? Power to extract the blood, to remove the blood from the inside of the chicken and the meat, and you know that's how we can eat it after it was salted. So if things were salted with something treif, it's a low-level cooking. There's heat. It's a type of heat. Eino divla bechli rak kedei klipa. The Ramah says bekli. It is not absorbed in the kli, in the pot or pan, if it's sat in there, only kedei klipa. Therefore, since it's only klipa, ein tzorich l'shar rak kedei klipa. So when you figure out the 60, you figure out against the klipa, which is a small
That's
piece.
the question. What percentage would that be? A tenth of the.
It depends what's involved.
Like if we did what you said, we took a big pot and we took a
Right.
small pot and put it inside. Now we know how much is the volume of the walls of the place.
Right.
And of that volume, what percentage will we klipa?
Yeah.
Is there a rule by that or?
There's no real formula, but
There's no formula.
that I've seen. But it's because it's more of a judgment. You know, you figure it out because it is really something very minute in comparison, and usually should not be a problem.
Do you think percent?
It could be. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, you can figure. This one can be figured out. This one can be figured.
Is it really a percent of the?
It's not written that it's a percentage. It's not written as a percentage because all
The
of it.
klipa will always be the same amount, no matter how thick the wall is.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, so that's in a kli. What if it's not in a kli? The reason why he says in a kli, because when we're machmir in Hilchas Melicha, B'ezrat Hashem, eventually we'll learn Hilchas Melicha, when it's not in a kli, when things are being salted together that they're not supposed to, imagine cheese being salted together, right? There's heat. There's going to be something that's going to be absorbed. There's a difference over there in Hilchas Melicha that they talk about if something is fatty or something is not fatty. Something that is fatty allows the flavor of the other item or of itself to travel more, spread more. If something is kochush, not shuman, kochush means slim, lean, yes, it's not as a problem as if something would be fatty meat, fatty cheese. So over there, I think the opinion of the poskim is that we are strict in food. In the keli, we're not so strict. In other words, in the food, it would be more than a klipa. It would be also the whole thing. If it was long enough, it could answer the whole thing. It could be a problem. They were next to each other. Anyway, we don't come across these situations too much. When do you see people salting stuff, But that's the halacha.
How do you define, is there any salt that is not
No,
kosher?
no, the salt is not treif. The salting is the process of pickling, right? Or salting, let's say you're salting chicken or meat to remove the blood inside. So the salt is kosher.
No, but they gave the example of salting. Salting is 60.
No, I'm sorry. The salt is not treif. The salting is the process, instead of heat, cooking treif with kosher, salt here was used
To kosher
to
tray pieces.
between two things together. So the salt enveloped the two items together. And by being in close proximity,
And one of the two items was treif.
one of the two items was treif, right? So that salt causes a little bit of that food to be transferred over to the other food, or in this case of the Ramah, to be transferred over a little bit partially to the keli where it is sitting in. But not so much. So, what was mentioned in the Mechaber and the Ramah? Bishul and Melicha. What is not mentioned? Kovush. But if you learn the Shach, you will see that the Shach says that this is only true by Melicha, but by Kovush, we would be strict. אבל אם נס על ידי כביש או צורך לשעין נגד כולוid, as the Shach says, if it did become also because of kovush, pickling together the two, sitting together in a pot full of brine for over 24 hours, a really good amount of time, then you know what it does to your pickles if you've ever done it. It really absorbs. It really absorbs the flavor, the kovush, and kovush is you need 60 connected the whole thing. So let's say you have a piece of treif meat with kosher meat being pickled together. So there's no cooking, there's no heat.
No, so you have two, because of the pickle, the brine.
Right.
Do you need 60 times, or just the salad?
So right now, the problem is, I have a piece of meat that I pickle together with a non-kosher piece of meat. Okay? So the piece of meat now is asur, because it was pickled with the treif piece of meat. In an amount that usually is not 60, usually against the, otherwise you're right. Otherwise it wouldn't be a problem, because it would be like cooking. I would need 60 times now. In other words, if this piece of meat that's kosher fell into another, I cooked it. Later on, I took this piece of kosher meat, now I just cooked it. Decided after I pickled it to cook it. Right? Then I realized, wait a minute, it was pickled with this non-kosher piece of meat. So that means that kosher meat is treif. I need now 60 times, perhaps, depending if you say Chanan B'Shari Surim, right? Do I need now against the treif or against the whole kosher piece of meat? We're going to be learning that now, soon, as well.
But in pickling, cooking, so lahatchila in the kosher piece of meat, I needed stir or what? How much?
Well, we say that the tam was absorbed. Remember,
As though
kovush
it was
is
cooked.
kovush is like mevushal for the tam.
Yeah.
For the tam, kovush is like
It's worse
mevushal.
than salt.
Yes, it's
Uh-huh.
worse. Yeah, it's much more powerful. Everybody pretty much is in
That's
agreement.
24 hours.
Yeah, exactly. You needed to have that time for it to be kovush, considered kovush. And we'll learn that in Hilchas Melicha. That's where kovush is discussed more. But anyway, so that's the Shach mentions that. Here the Ramah doesn't talk about it.
Is there a time factor?
With the salting, yes, about 18 minutes, half an hour.
Wait,
Yeah, there's different opinions depending what you're trying to accomplish here. If it's as far as drawing the salt, but the ever right before Shabbos you have to cook something, what's the bare minimum that you can salt it for? Versus the situation where it became usr. Do you make it usr if it was at a very small amount of time, or can you be more lenient with more time? Yes. The next halacha that Mechaber brings down in the same seed is v'yesh mi shemachmir. There are some who are machmir bekaf shel mateches lehatzrich shishim keneged kulo afilu lo hichnes ela mitzvos mishum decha mitzvos elcham kulo. Okay, we're talking about a metal spoon, but you did not put the entire spoon into the mixture. You just the base of it, just the base, the round base. I guess what is it called? The scoop. The scoop of it, whatever. That's the only thing that really touched the heter. So the Mechaber says there are some, not him, because it's a yesh misha omer. In other words, it's usually he does not go necessarily by this opinion, but he says yesh misha machmer bekaf shel mateches if it's a metal spoon, that you need 60 keneged kulo against the entire spoon, even though just a small piece of it was mixing. Why? Mishum decham miksoso cham kuloi. Because of a rule that if part of it is hot, the whole thing is hot. Metal, the heat transfers. Travels. You can try it at home too, with your blech, that you cover the stove right before Shabbat. Even though the flame is on the one part of the blech of the metal cover, you'll feel some heat at the other edge. That's the rule. It's a physical rule. Cham miksoso cham kulo. And by the way, if you learn Basar v'chalav, you find this exact same halacha there too.
Yeah.
Toichem. He says there too, exact same thing. That according to some, you would need to figure out the entire spoon, even though all it was, I was mixing my coffee with a meat spoon, but I only used a little bit of the spoon. We don't hold like that. Even though cham miksoso cham kulo, we're not machmir to need 60 against the whole spoon. Yes.
But we held it the entire way above the cooking.
Right.
So why would some hold that it seems to go against that?
Excellent question. Did you hear that, Ilan?
Yeah.
The question is, we said before that with heat travels everywhere, even though I've only cooked a little bit, the water is the whole pot. The poskim say that the only time this is true, that I don't have to use 60, is when I know for certain how much I put in. If I don't know, then I can't say. I may have only used a small piece. Only when I know for certain can I rely on this leniency that we don't need, because cham miksoso cham kulo, I'm not makpid to use 60 times. Since many, many times we don't know.
But in that case that we know we don't need. And similarly,
With the spoon, right.
in the pot, if tea,
Right,
how much is served with pot?
right,
And it's a new pot,
right,
so we also only need this whole pot if we know for certain.
right. We didn't say, that's right. That's correct, but
That's because that's the exception.
yeah, but there's a difference. Okay, there's a small difference. With the cooking, it's like you said before, there's steam, there's other things going on.
Right.
So we say that the heat transfers, as opposed to Melicha, the heat transfers it through the whole pot. We're machmir
Right,
there.
yes.
Thank you. Here with the spoon, it's a little bit different. In other words, we just put it in a little bit. We didn't have it all cooking in a pot. So even though I don't recall right now, but I think there is an opinion that would say with the pots too, that if you for certain, then you don't need to, right? Yeah, there is, right? We're machmir nevertheless. We're machmir nevertheless. I don't think we use this rule of kaf by pots.
It's a little bit different. The point with
Yeah.
the pot is,
Yeah.
pot is, Chaber says it,
And you remember with the pots, you use it many times too. You do
When you
use
use
it
many
many
times,
times.
it's a different story.
You could have used it for more. Here we're talking about a one-time thing, so it's a different kind of scenario over here. But you're right in technical terms. If you knew exactly somehow, it's coming back to our question here of knowledge. We don't know certain things, and therefore we have to be machmir to use shishim. But let's say you were able to know. What if you have a microscope and you can actually figure out how much flavor there is? What is it? With a microscope? Right? With bugs, the halacha says certain bugs, you don't have to use a scope. You have to see it with the naked eye for it to be off. If you have to use a microscope, you'll begin to see bacteria too. and that the whole air is full of it. Right? So the halacha is not intended for scientists, it's for average people. We need to know what to do. So there are times we have to be machmir because we don't always know for sure, and we do know that flavor travels, and when you're cooking it, it does travel all the way, as opposed to salting or kavush, that, even though kavush is stricter than salting, it would not travel, it would not make the whole thing usher. Yeah, go ahead.
This of the half spoon.
Right.
Part of the pot.
Yeah,
I was thinking that, to me what made sense is that the pot gets hot because it's like
right,
hot to get hot.
right.
So therefore, you have the application of that process.
Cham miksoso cham kulo, yeah.
The whole pot.
Right,
If you take a spoon, hot pot, that spoon, like you mentioned,
yeah,
that's all get hot all of a sudden. You have to leave
for a while.
the pot for a while.
Right,
So that's what I was thinking was the difference is that you're cooking, That whole pot's gonna get hot.
Yeah, but what if you were mixing for a while and the whole spoon got a little hot? That's
Well, that's why it's not
It's not
very
Yeah.
good idea to use a metal something hot.
otherwise you're going to burn your hand. Yeah,
So then you're saying that's not the central point?
not the central point here. No,
Central point is, you say one-
that you know with certainty how much you put in.
But with us, you see, Tom came out of the meat with the pot, and then for the whole thing.
Yeah, we're machmir with the whole kli. Yeah.
But with the spoon, you really don't know, why isn't the spoon at all? There's not much time in the pot, and you don't have much time in the spoon either.
Yeah. I believe when we learn Basar b'chalav, you will recall that there are situations where you can know. Because in the case of the pot, we're talking about where the pot has isser in there. You're cooking something mutter in a pot that was usser pot. So you don't really know how far up it went. Usually that's the case with pots. So therefore, if you were to know exactly, maybe it wouldn't be as of an issue. It's still an issue where machmir because of what you said, that point too, that it does travel, the whole pot is cooking. So that example is it's always very, very hot and it's always, the flavor is always traveling. But with this situation, even if you were to be there for a while, it would not necessarily mean that you have to use 60 keneged the whole spoon. Only because of the way it's being used. The way the spoon is being used over here, you know exactly how much you're putting. The halacha says that you don't have to be machmer. In other words, apparently there is a difference between the pot and the spoon. Whereas in the pot, you don't know exactly how much was used. Sometimes it goes to the top, sometimes it goes lower. And therefore, you need to use keneged kol hagdera. But even with the pot, I believe if you knew exactly, if that was those were the circumstances, then you would be able to be lenient possibly.
Even hot.
Yes, yeah. I guess depending on the situation, because in the pot, like Hilan was saying, you have the lid. Once you have a lid, then it makes no difference how much you were cooking. If you recall from Basar b'chalav, that also makes a difference. Did the drop fall on the lid or not? Remember that if you learn. Once you have a lid, the whole thing is considered as though it did reach to the top. The physics behind it is such that even though the liquid is 50% full, because it's covered, it's as though it reached the top. So I guess it would depend on the...
There are actually distinct
Yeah.
items. One is the quantity that assers the pot or the...
Right.
And the second question is how much of the pot or the spoon participate in that isser. So if a certain quantity of isser was absorbed, let's say by a spoon,
Right.
and now only half of the spoon contributes or participates in releasing whatever isser is balua in that half, then obviously half of the isser will have remained in the spoon that didn't participate in release,
Yeah.
and half of the isser will have been released from that half of the spoon that did release it. These are two questions.
Yes.
How much of the pot is hot? How much of the spoon is hot? Which is our question
That's
here.
true, yeah.
And how much isser was
Is
there?
released and how much is being released here. So in this case, I would agree with you that we can determine how much is being released based on what we actually are witnessing, what we're observing with the spoon.
So the first question is, so the one question is, if we know the quantity of isser and it is smaller than the volume of the pot, can we take that into consideration and just say, well, it was only that much isser, so I only need to see times the isser and not the whole pot?
Right.
That's one question.
Yeah.
And a different question is, given that I have a certain amount of isser, but only half of the spoon is what was contained in, can I only take half of the isser that was released, or do I have to factor in all the isser that was balua in the spoon?
Right. And that's why two different things, and that's where the Mechaber points out, and in this case of the spoon at least, he says that the Yesh Mishomer, some would be strict, but we don't follow that opinion. We're lenient with this. All right, what I did not mention yet is, even though there are various levels of heat, I mentioned, I think, just Klisheni, we mentioned Bishul, we mentioned Melicha and Kovush, we didn't mention Irui. Irui is another form of heat. You have a percolator. What's coming down from the percolator is called Irui. Irui also is Mevashel Kedei Klipa. The faucet, hot water coming down. It's Irui Kli Rishon. It's also Kedei Klipa. It's not like cooking on the fire in the stove. It has the ability to penetrate Kedei Klipa, a little bit of wherever it falls on. What's not mentioned over here, but there's a whole issue about it between, I think, the Shach and the Ramah. about anything that needs a kedei klipa. What happens if you did not remove the kedei klipa and it got cooked? And it was cooked anyway. And the Ramah mentions earlier that, I think it was, let me see, was it in Tzadik Aleph? Yeah, Tzadik Aleph, I think, yeah. That it's okay. B'mokom Shabbos tzorich klipa im lo kalfuo u'bishlo kach muter b'diavad, which is very surprising. Why should it be muter b'diavad? The Shach has a whole write-up about that. That l'chora, usually you need, if something really needs a klipa, and you didn't do it, you need 60 times against the klipa. Why should you just not do it? And now that piece of meat still needs the klipa, and what about the rest? It needs 60 against the klipa. So the answer really over there, the explanation about that is that the Ramah is speaking about a situation where the whole thing is completely disintegrated. Like we will see an example here soon, later on here, let me see here. We will see an example in the following Ramah where we're dealing with an Isser that is completely absorbed, completely disintegrated, completely gone. You don't see it anymore. And when you don't see it anymore, it would be muter b'diavad. In other words, there's nothing to take the klipa from. Because let's say you have something that needed kedei klipa on liquid. Okay? Not on a solid, on a liquid. It's a liquid. So because it's a liquid, you can't really see it. It's all got mixed anyway. It's all mixed up. In that kind of a situation, if that's what he meant, that's what Ramah would mean. In that kind of a situation where there's no meat left, it's all disintegrated. And it's like the situation in the next portion of the Ramah, where it's completely liquid. Just like the liquid doesn't need a klipa b'diavad. I mean, you can't do it, right? So it would be mutter in that case. But obviously, if the piece of meat is still around, you still need to remove the klipa, even if you didn't do it the first time around.
Is that the Rabbana?
Yes.
The Rabbana.
It's a chumrah.
So in such a case, when it's mixed
No,
up,
but it's
why does he say something the Rabbana?
No, but because you didn't do it, you can still do
No,
it.
I'm saying when it's mixed in.
Right, that's why he's lenient. That's one of the reasons why he's lenient, because the whole thing, right?
What was the Ramah?
Tzadik Aleph. In Siman Tzadik Aleph, in Basar b'Cholov, it's close to that halacha of Tatar Gavar, right?
Yeah,
That's where that Ramah is, yeah.
that's because, I think the whole thing's a chumrah, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So when you're talking about on the klipa, no?
In the Iroi would be almost like a Kli Rishon, right?
So
It would be.
still hold there, because now we're talking about not something that's actually a deraisa.
Kedei klipa is the Raisa.
No. The whole concept.
No, it's the Raisa and Shishim is the
The Kli Rishon, yeah, but the Iroi, I believe it would still be the same halacha because the Kedei Klipa itself is a chumrah. It's not a real bishul.
The only quantities that we have.
What is that?
I thought Yore that was connected within,
Right.
that you take is rice, but I could be wrong.
No, we have to check it out. We have to check if there would be a difference. I don't believe there is.
But we know one thing. There is a Rov, that's
Right.
the Raisa.
Right.
We say 60 by Einomino is
Right.
the Raisa.
That's
How
correct.
can Kedei klipa be the Raisa?
No, but he was talking about the whole Irui concept.
Yeah, but I'm saying
Yeah, but
whenever
the-
you're
the-
told
right.
they take a Kedei klipa.
The klipa
if you
itself,
tell me
no.
You need a Rov.
The klipa itself is a shir midrabanan. Right. That's all completely yes. All right. Let's just go on to the next case. Maybe we have a few more minutes. We know again Kisvora Rishoina that we don't say chamitzos or cham kuloi.
By the way, it's three Rishon. Was it this or Raisa? How can you tell me? You should tell me either you need Rov or you need by Einomi.
No, the question
Take
was
it, if
the
it
question
was
was
considered
whether
Raisa.
we have to be more machmir in the Irui versus Melicha situation. Whether Irui is more, just like Kovush, we're machmir because Kovush is called
If we're going to
Navusha.
be more marked, then
Yeah.
you should say I need to see.
Yeah, but the fact that it's not, it doesn't. Well, okay,
If Kedei klipa is enough, then it can't be.
right, all right, yeah. Okay, the second portion of the Ramah. Let's just cover this one, and we'll leave Sif Hay maybe for Thursday or for another time. There's a very interesting Ramah here, very, very fascinating Ramah, that tells us as follows. Okay, we have Shishim. It's batal. Everything so far so good. We're not done yet, the Ramah says. If it's at all possible to still remove the Isser from that mixture, if you can figure out a way to do it, you have to do it. There is a way for me to get the Isser out that I cannot see with my eyes. Why should I do it? I have Shishim. Shishim took care of it, and I don't see it Be'ain. I don't see Be'ain, because if I were to see Be'ain, then I have to remove it. I don't care if you have 100 times. The Ramah says like this. V'chol Isur shemevatlim b'shishim. Any Isur that you need 60. Imakiro tzorich lasiro. Obviously, you have to remove it if you see it. Misham afal gav dekvar nizbatel tamo b'shishim, even though its flavor is gone. V'lachein. Im nofal chelev, not cholov. You need the vowels here. The correct vowels is chelev. If you have forbidden fats falling into a letoch stavshi, v'nizbatel tamo b'shishim, and its flavoring is gone in 60. Tzorich liten sham mayim tzonanim. Guess what? You have to apply after it cooked. You have to pour some cold water. Cold water into this mixture, and you know what will happen? Teva chelev lehakpi. The nature of fat is to congel. I think that's the best word for lehakpi. If there's chelev in that mixture, it will congel, and you know what's going to happen to it? Velotzuf lemala lamayim, and it's going to come up and float on top of the water. And then when it floats, yasireno misham, you can remove it from there. The me'achad efshel asiro habekilu makiroi. So he tells us the reason for this. Because you can remove it, it's technically possible, then you need to do it. Why? Because it's ki'ilu makiroi. It is as though you can actually see it. And the halacha is, whenever you see it, you have to remove it. The bittul doesn't help. So therefore, if there's anything that you can do, and here you can, by putting water, and that will make it congel and come floating up, remove it. Once it's come up, remove that fat. Huh?
No, I'm laughing about
Yeah.
something here.
It is, right? But they knew something we don't know. You know, they used to use fats a lot in those days. Chicken fat and all kinds of fat.
You would have to remove all of the fat.
You would have to remove the fat, whatever.
All the fat.
All the fat will float to the top, and you will need to remove it.
When it was mutter or had the fat.
No, we're talking about forbidden fat here.
Presumably, if there was meat and was mixed together, you have to remove all of the fat. Never came to the top.
Whatever came to the top, yeah. If that's what you have, if you have a mixture. Tzor lasir misham. What's going on over here? This is a very interesting halacha. It's a chiddush. The Ramah brings it down. The Mechaber didn't talk about it. What would the Mechaber say? Would he agree with it? What's going on over here? Huh? The crazy Uflacy, Rabbi Yonasan Eibshitz, big Goren, has several chiburim on Yore Deah and other things, drash, very, very sharp mind. A great mechaber, a great author to learn this from, Rabbi Yonasan Eibshitz. So he says, if the water here will spoil the food, it will spoil it, then you don't have to do it. Because the only reason why you need to do this, the way he explains it, is because it's a form of dover sheyesh lo matirin. There's a way to deal with this situation. You can resolve it by putting water and taking out the isser. But if that water will spoil this, then it's not a dover sheyesh lo matirin. Right? And he compares it, he wants to compare it to the example I gave you before about mixed kalim. A treif pot mixed with kosher pots, treif spoon mixed with kosher spoon, you don't know which one it is. We say it's bottle. It's too much of a hassle to kasher everything. That's the reason there. It's too much of a hassle. We don't require you. If there's expenses, there's time involved, and so forth. But the Aruch HaShulchan says, Ma pitom. Why? How could you compare the two? He says they're not the same. All the poskim seem to be saying that the water, in the case of the Ramah, even if it would be a problem here, you would still need to use it. Because we consider this ba'ain. This is a ba'ain. Over there it's what? Over there it's an iser balua. In the case of pots and pans, spoons and forks that are mixed and you don't know which one is straight, you forgot to kasher it, it's an iser balua. You don't see the iser. So you say it's bottle. Here, how could you say bottle when you see it? That's the whole idea, where you have to remove it because you see it. So they don't agree with him. Basically all of them came out on machmir here. If you could remove the fats, you have to remove the fats. A good chiluk. I mean, the Aruch HaShulchan makes a very nice chiluk. He says, how could you compare the two? They're very different. It's not, just because.
It's not the aim of the water.
Right. But he says if it's going to spoil it, then you don't have to do it. It's too much of a. Just like over there, it's a hassle. You don't have to. Here, it's a hassle too. It's going to ruin it. No, you still need to do it. So anyway, so that's what we're, but I have some news for you. You have to hear this one. This one is very interesting. The Aruch HaShulchan brings down here the Isur V'Heter and the Bach. Let me see if I have it here, written down here. In the following situation. He brings down the Isur V'Heter and the Bach, who hold, what a great idea. This water to remove the fats. Can I use it if I have less than shishim? I have here less than shishim. The Ramah's example is I have shishim and I still have to use it. Comes along the Isur V'Heter and the Bach. They say, hey, we can use this method if you have less than shishim. Get rid of the fat. Boom. Out.
If you got rid of
They say no. They say no.
But we just said depending on the chaber.
Okay.
If you have removed the isser, you see that wasn't.
Why? Why?
Because of the taste.
What?
Because of the taste.
What taste?
The isser that remains, the taste remains behind even if you remove substance. That's what Jesus שנתבשל עם heter.
Right.
מכירו והוא שלם בזרקות.
Right. Right. And what do we have? Here
So
we
if we have the fat, we have.
But this is fat only. But this is fat.
And so what?
There's no
forbidden fat.
Yeah, but we got rid of all of it. There's nothing left.
Against the taste of the forbidden fat because it's
60 to 0 is what?
been changed.
Yeah, but there's nothing left.
No.
There's nothing left.
Well, here's something else either.
What?
The
No, there's flavor left. There's flavor left over here. I removed the entire fat. It's gone.
But how'd you get rid of the flavor?
Oh, that's what the Taz says. You will find in the notes, and I disagree with them. And not that I disagree with those notes, but the notes didn't seem to capture what the Taz was talking about. You'll see about the Taz. The Taz has a whole thing about, but wait a minute, there's still flavor. There's still flavor over here involved, and that's why, you always, and they all, by the way, all the Poiskim disagree with the Bach. The Taz, as you know, was related to his father-in-law. He's son-in-law, right? So he says, no way! He says, you're still going to have the flavor here. Even though it's true, you got it all out, but there's still flavor there. And that is why we're machmer. And that's why you need always 60. So you're right. If you say like the Taz that there's flavor. But wait a minute. Comes along the Aruch HaShulchan to save the day. He says, I can make peace between everybody. Between the Isur V'Heter and the Bach, and the Pri Chodosh, the Shach, and the Taz who say, no way. You always need shish. Even if you remove the whole thing. Why? This is incredible. It says, what did you read here? It says Chalev. The Isur V'Heter read it as it says Cholov. Okay? The original halacha, they read that it's talking about chalav, milk, that fell into this mixture.
So the Ramah was talking about challah?
Wait a minute, yeah. And therefore, there's a way to remove the milk from this meat. Huh? Put some water. So the Aruch HaShulchan explains it's not plain milk, because that wouldn't work.
No, chanan. So
No, I'm going to get to chanan in a minute. Even if it's plain milk. 1 second. Wait. We're getting there. That's the good, the best part now. Okay? He says it's smetana. If you know Yiddish, the Aruch HaShulchan brings down, we're talking about smetana. Smetana is the thicker milk. Is the thicker, the cream. The curd or the cream. We're not talking about regular milk because with regular milk this wouldn't work.
The cream that floats above.
Exactly. He says it can only be talking about that. That's what they meant. And therefore, everything is fine. If we're talking about smetana, then there's no flavor left. If we're talking about chalev, there's still flavor left. Because the only reason by the smetana that it's usher is because of taruvos, not because of tam. The problem with this taruvos, it's a mixture. The flavor is completely gone. Oh, okay. Come along, the place
became chanan.
Now, Baruch Hashem, you're anticipating. So they say, but wait a minute, what about the Hanan? What's the chiddush over here with the Ramah? What the Ramah is trying to tell us, exactly. The Ramah is saying that this technique of removing the Isser with water does away with the problem of Asur L'Sochtoi, that we'll talk about later on. Asur L'Sochtoi means that I'm sorry, that you cannot squeeze out an Isser from a piece that already has the Isser. It remains Asur. Once it's Asur, that piece remains Asur. Okay? There is such a concept of Efshar L'Sochtoi. Sometimes.
It becomes chanan.
Right. Sometimes. And some say it's not related to Hanan. has nothing to do with Hanan. You could hold that there's no Hanan in Shari Surim, but it's still Ef Shel Soichtoi. Like the Mechaber. Mechaber himself later on says the piece remains Asr even though I hold there's no Hanan in Shari Surim. Okay? So we'll talk about that. You all understand what's Ef Shel Soichtoi? That a piece can remain Asr?
And it's like a sponge that fills itself up with something. You use the sponge, it comes back out.
It was once
But the
Asr.
sponge becomes
It has once upon a time become Asr because there was not enough things to mevatel it. Then it fell again into another pot. In that pot, there is 60 times against the whole thing. So that pot is saved, but that piece remains Asr. We don't say that 60 times in the pot releases the Isser from the piece, the kosher meat that will become Asr. Do you understand? You follow? That's Ef Shel Soichtoi.
That's what we deny.
So the Poskim explain that in this technique, we don't apply Ef Shel Soichtoi. Why? Because here it's really gone. There it's not necessarily gone. Here it's really gone. That's number one. Plus, it's not called Mevatel Isur Lechatchila, which is another concept, because it's completely gone. And there's no Hanan either, because nothing is left. It's still a big chidush, like you said. Because if we're talking about Basar and Cholav, it's still a big chidush to say what the Aruch HaShulchan is saying. So they ask about it. They say it's a big chidush that he says that according to the Bach and Isser, if we're talking about Cholav, that it's completely gone. It would be a big chidush if you don't say Hanan here, because the Chori did become Hanan. But he would say that it's completely gone, so there is no Hanan. So anyway, so this is a big chidush over here, and the Ritz Hashem will continue a little bit more on Thursday to review this. But I think
That's scary.
I think that this was a very interesting idea.
Very interesting.
And I wanted to share it with you.
That's scary.
Okay.
But it also explains one other thing. That's why I was laughing.
Yeah.
Because the Machaber is talking here about failure. In our teeth, suddenly it becomes milk.
Basic technology.
Yeah.
You put it in hot water.
Yeah.
If you
Remember
make
our question about
freezer,
milk?
it just comes out.
Yeah.
Right away. You don't
Yeah.
have to
In
add
hay?
Would
water.
that work?
Yeah. Well,
If the logic is just
to make it disappear, if you somehow can remove it. Yeah.
So,
Put it in the refrigerator.
the refrigeration, does the water?
It may. This is just
No, it doesn't.
one technique.
It doesn't work.
There may be others.
It's because the water was that
Hold
it's
on.
cooler.
Yeah.
It's cooler,
Yeah.
and it just brings it
Yes,
oil up.
that's the idea.
So if you refrigerator,
But you know what you're just saying? You're just saying that anything that got mixed, even if you have 60, from now on you have to put in the freezer.
Yeah.
that's
You
what
have to.
Here the Rama says you need to.
It's not
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah.
He was speaking about refrigeration
Yeah.
down the road.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll continue on Thursday, Mr. Shem.
You have to keep